This is Isaiah J. Poole, ourfuture.org at the Take Back America conference. Robert Kuttner, the founding co-editor of the American Prospect and the author of the book, The Squandering of America, spoke at a Take Back America luncheon on an economy that works for working people. I asked Kuttner about his reaction to the news this weekend that the Federal Reserve Board and the Bush administration helped coordinate the sale of Bear Stearns, a venerable Wall Street investment house, to stave off an anticipated bankruptcy. On the economy.
You're seeing all the chickens coming home to roost. This is the result of deregulation of the federal authorities allowing all kinds of speculation to occur, and then realizing that when a lot of these big banks and investment banking companies like Bear Stearns lose their shirt, that the whole economy is at risk. And so the Fed, which was not willing to bail out industrial corporations or pension funds that failed, felt that it had to bail out Bear Stearns, because if Bear Stearns went broke, it could take down all of Wall Street. It's a case of what happens when you allow extreme speculation and fail to regulate banks and investment banks, and then when the whole thing goes belly up, you're afraid that the whole economy will go down the drain, so that in effect the Federal Reserve has taken on all of these speculative risks onto its own balance sheet and that of the American taxpayer. It's why we need regulation on the front end so that we don't have bailouts on the back end.
Now, it's interesting that this comes on a couple of days after President Bush cautioned about overreacting to the current downturn.
Well, President Bush is a fool. I mean, I think after 7.5 years, that hardly needs further documentation.
Well, what should Democrats be doing right now?
Democrats should be advocating re-regulation of the financial sector of the kind that we had for 40 years after the New Deal. During the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we had low real interest rates, but those interest rates were not used to finance speculation. They were not used to finance scams, because all of these scams that had brought down the economy in 1929 were prohibited by regulations that were enacted in the 30s. And when business got back in the saddle in the 1970s, little by little, all of those consumer protections were repealed. So we need to argue for re-regulation of Wall Street. That means prohibitions against conflicts of interest, prohibitions against speculation of the kind that we've seen in the subprime mess, prohibitions against conflicts of interest, prohibitions requiring greater transparency. Secondly, we need a lot more public spending so that we can create energy independence, better infrastructure, all of which will create good jobs for Americans. If we can put good jobs back in the economy, money back in the pockets of workers, then workers won't have to go so deeply into debt in order to put food on the table.
I got one final question. What should progressives be? What's the one thing that you would like to see progressives walking out of this conference with?
An understanding of how serious the economic meltdown is, and a recognition that this is one of those times, like 1964 with the Civil Rights Revolution or 1933 with the New Deal, where in order to be an effective liberal, you have to be something of a radical. This is Isaiah J. Poole, ourfuture.org at the Take Back America conference.